Carol Danvers, prodigal child of the Milky Way.
Nick Fury, my favorite one-eyed man of intrigue.
How goes it out there?
Cold, no air, space.
Captain Marvel, the Annihilator. You took everything from me. And now I'm returning the favor.
What is happening to me?
Hello and welcome back to the Film Odyssey Podcast. My name is Salo Cicero.
And I'm Dan Dubon.
And today we will be discussing about the Marvel's first weekend box office performance, our thoughts on David Fincher's latest film, The Killer, and if comic book movie fatigue is a real thing, or is it just mediocre movie fatigue?
All right, so the Marvels, recently just hit theaters. It's looking like it might do really bad box office wise. I'm not sure what the budget was. I think I heard it was 200 million, something like that.
Around that.
Yeah, which is kind of insane. Like, why does the movie cost that much to begin with? The box office for this movie, it's not looking good. But in my opinion, I feel like almost anyone could have predicted that this movie wouldn't do well box office wise. I mean, you could look at the first Captain Marvel and say, oh, that one made $1 billion, right? And that's kind of the thing that people use to say that there is interest in the Captain Marvel character. But you have to remember that movie came out right before Avengers Endgame did. It was like kind of like the DLC or like a side quest that you have to do before you encounter the main boss. You know what I mean? In like a video game.
Yeah, it was like a demo before you actually got the actual game.
Exactly. So that's why a bunch of people went out to see that movie, because they assumed that the original Captain Marvel movie would set up like what's to come with Avengers Endgame. This movie did have that luxury. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons why we think this thing is failing. So I guess we'll start with you on, why do you think the Marvels is doing so bad right now?
Because nobody cares. A lot of people have been saying about the characters in it. The fact that the two other characters, the only way you get to know about them is if you watch the Disney Plus shows.
Exactly. Disney is expecting you to do your homework before you go to see this movie. People don't like homework. So for me, the first reason is the marketing. The trailers weren't good. Number two reason why this is failing is, again, like you said, general audiences don't even know who Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel are. So why would they go see a movie on characters that they have no idea who they are? They were introduced in these small Disney Plus shows that not a lot of people watch, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And, Captain Marvel, I mean, people know who she is, but do people really like her character? At this point, I really do feel bad for Brie Larson, because when she probably got the offer to join the MCU and, be play a superhero, play this Captain Marvel character, she was probably excited. But I really think she was kind of screwed over by just a bland character, bad writing, bad direction. And I feel like it's really unfortunate when you think about it.
It is unfortunate. And I don't think there's going to be a Captain Marvel or the Marvels 3. That's for sure.
I'd be surprised if we even see Brie Larson play this role again.
Yeah, no matter if she wants to or not.
At this point, Kevin Feige is probably like, okay, well, there's obviously zero interest in the Captain Marvel character. I mean, the box office is telling that story. I mean, maybe you could put her in as a supporting character in someone else's thing down the line. But
that's exactly what they did for Black Widow, and that wasn't really right.
Number one, marketing was horrible. Number two, the characters, people don't even know who they are. And the character that they do know, they don't necessarily like to begin with. And that's a major problem, right? Especially when you have a $200 million blockbuster. I mean, you have to like the characters to go see the movie, or at least know who they are. So that's like a major problem. These are kind of obvious things on why this movie is doing bad. I mean, you could also kind of add in and say, oh, it's comic book movie fatigue. General audiences are sick of this crap. But I mean, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, I guess that could also somewhat be a factor.
I do feel that because I did see this movie on Friday. And
were there a lot of people in your theater?
No, I booked tickets just for like a 2D showing, like at 3.
Oh,
p.m. And so there weren't a lot of
okay.
people. There were more people going to like the IMAX. The third act of the movie feels like it was written by AI. I mean, there's no way a person could have came up with this and thought this is a good
Yeah,
idea. Because if someone did, I'm pretty sure they'd feel embarrassed. It's not as bad as Fan Four Stick. It's not as bad as that movie. But given the outcome of that film and how it
yeah,
felt so uneven and everything felt like it was missing, and it just by the
yeah,
time, even before you watched it, you already had a feeling that something was going to be wrong. That's kind of what I felt with the Marvels. It felt like it was in production hell since phase two, and it was not. The movie, I believe, was announced like in 2021, was it, when Kevin Feige was announcing phase four or
yeah,
five?
yeah. It
So
was. Yeah,
so that's not a good thing if your movie feels like it's been in trouble since 2013. Like
yeah.
that's really not a good thing at all.
Nia DaCosta as the director. I mean, I didn't really think her Candyman movie was even that good.
It was not good
Um,
at all.
I mean, this movie felt like it was directed by like a committee anyway, so I'm not even sure how much she was on set during filming for this, or how much was like reshot, or how many scenes were spliced up, or how many things were cut out of this movie. So it's hard to tell how much she was responsible for in this movie. For all we know, she could have directed a great movie, but then Marvel came in, they're like, we can't have these scenes in here, got to cut all this out. We have to reshoot the whole third act because this doesn't work.
It does feel that Nia DaCosta quit like halfway through production.
Also, I almost forgot to mention this. The villain in this movie was absolutely terrible.
By far, I think the worst villain in the
Uh,
MCU.
like if you thought any of the other MCU villains were bad, I can't even remember the villain's name. That's how bad they were. I don't even know what the hell their motivation was. It was like kind of dumb.
All right, so our next topic or our next discussion is on David Fincher's latest film, The Killer, that premiered on Netflix.
I find music a useful distraction, a focus tool. Keeps the inner voice from wandering. This is what it takes. My process is purely logistical. If I'm effective, it's because of one simple fact. I don't give a.
I got to see it early. One of the theaters that are near me were actually playing the film, so I got to see it in October last month. You, Dan, you got to see it. I think, did you get to see it yesterday? Was it? I don't know.
Yeah. Last night I watched it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see this in a theater because it wasn't playing at a theater near me. If it was, I probably would have seen it like a month ago. I didn't think it was like top tier Fincher. Like to me, this isn't as good as like Gone Girl or Fight Club, or obviously Seven, like movies like that. But I don't think this is his worst either. It's somewhere in the middle for me. I feel like I have to
Yeah.
rewatch it maybe one more time to get a better grasp on the movie as a whole. But easily one of the best Netflix movies of the year. Michael Fassbender gives one of his best performances, I think, in this movie. He's great here.
You think to yourself, like, what has Hollywood been missing? And he kind of shows you that it's him that's been
Yeah.
missing.
I mean, it's crazy. You see him in a movie like Next Goal Wins, which releases this coming week, and he's playing this fun, upbeat character. And then here, he's playing this really like cold.
I don't give a fuck type person.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it shows how much range he really has.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yeah, on the surface, this is like a very basic, been there, done that plot.
Very much so.
Yeah, we've seen this type of movie like hundreds of times over the past like 5 years. This movie was really good, but I feel like for me it was kind of confusing on, were we supposed to be rooting for Fassbender's character here? because I feel like some things he does in this movie, it's like you could kind of get behind him. It's like, oh, these assassins, they tried to kill the one person I love. I have to take them out, right? It's easy to root for him in that way, but this character, he is pretty brutal. I mean, he kills some innocent people here that don't really deserve to die.
Pretty much no one is safe.
I feel like he was kind of like in the morally gray area. Like for some things he was doing, it was understandable. Other reasons, it was like you took that too far.
We still have to remember this guy is an assassin. He doesn't care.
Yeah, that's true. The underdevelopment for his character worked in that aspect because I feel like Fincher didn't want people to emphasize with this character at all.
Yeah.
Like, the last thing he probably wanted is this to turn into another Fight Club situation.
Probably. And when you were talking about Seven,
Yeah.
this is the second time that Fincher and the writer of Seven have collaborated with each other.
It is.
Because of that, I do think this is an underwhelming film compared to Seven. I was expecting more from the writer of that movie and from the director. It's good, but it's not great.
I will say I really love the score for this movie. I thought that was really well done. I love
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, man.
Yeah, that was great. I love the multiple locations in this movie of like where he went. I think it helped keep things fresh and exciting for the duration of the movie. The one other problem I have with this is I feel like the third act or kind of climax to this movie, personally, I thought was underwhelming. I might have to rewatch it and I might feel different about it. But I don't know. I feel like it really felt like the movie was building up to this big explosive third act, and it really ends on a whimper.
For some reason, I was upset. I'm not going to spoil anything in case people haven't seen it yet, but it does lead up to something. And at first, I was kind of underwhelmed, but then I had to think to myself, maybe is Fincher trying to convey a message?
Yeah. That's why I said I feel like I need to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Because there might be a deeper meaning that I did pick up on through the first watch. Overall, I thought this was a really good Fincher movie, not a great one. He's made better. It's also not one of his worst. Definitely an improvement over Mank.
Hell of an improvement over Mank. This is him teasing his return to psychological thrillers, and I gotta say that it is an impressive announcement.
I really hope this is more so a teaser of better stuff to come from him in the future.
Very much so.
So yeah, overall, a good Fincher movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. It's on Netflix now.
But yeah, it's a decent movie. I recommend checking it out, especially if you're a fan of David Fincher. Tell us what you thought about The Killer if you saw it. How would you rank it compared to Fincher's other movies?
All right, so moving on to our last and final topic. There's been a debate for a long time. Is comic book movie fatigue a real thing, right? I think this has been going on since at least 4 or 5 years ago. People were talking about this.
Yeah.
Will there ever be a point where general audiences, start to get sick of comic book movies, right? And will they, so to speak, go the way of the Western? For a long time, I kind of brushed that off because I felt like it was kind of dumb, like a dumb debate to have, especially back in like 2018, 2019.
When Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah, when comic book movies were, I think it's safe to say, maybe at their peak during that time.
Very much so.
This year, there's been a lot of comic book movies released, and most were either mediocre to bad, with only 2 of them, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Across the Spider-Verse, being what I would call great movies. I think now, more than ever, that discussion is becoming more and more prevalent by the day, especially with the recent, the Marvels releasing now and the mixed reception with that movie and poor box office performance. The question becomes, are we at the point now where people are just genuinely sick of the comic book movie genre? They don't care about it anymore. It's been done to death. Unless you do a movie like, I don't know, Logan or Joker, people don't really care. Are we at that point? Or is it more so that these companies, specifically Warner Bros. And Disney, have gotten so comfortable just pumping out mediocre movies? It's more so not, oh, we're sick of like superheroes or, comic book movies, but more so we're sick of mediocre crap being shoved down our throats.
I think it's mostly mediocre crap and just a smidge of superhero movie fatigue.
I think I have to agree with you because I feel like if this truly was comic book movie fatigue, would Guardians of the Galaxy 3 have been as successful as it was? And I don't think Across the Spider-Verse would have made as much money as it did either if comic book movie fatigue was a real thing, right?
Yeah, people would have ignored those two films.
Yeah. So to me, I feel like we're not at that point yet. I mean, we've seen this year that audiences want original movies. Like you look at Oppenheimer and Barbie, most incredibly successful, right? That was like a phenomenon, like a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I think those two movies prove that what people really want is original stories about engaging characters.
I mean, like Greta Gerwig didn't just come up with Barbie. Christopher Nolan
yeah.
didn't just come up with Oppenheimer. These were original because Oppenheimer, no one really did a movie about Oppenheimer before. And Christopher Nolan chose to make a biopic very differently in his way, which made it original. Greta Gerwig decided to make a Barbie movie that was very original in many, many ways.
Yeah.
And also, I think the memes kind of really helped its box office success too, which is another thing. But I think that people just want originality, like you said.
Yeah. I really think that the only way this genre will survive is if they keep on pushing the boundaries, right?
Very much so.
I mean, if you look at a movie like Logan or Joker, there's a reason why so many people love those movies because they weren't your typical good guy saves the day story. So yeah, I really think the path forward for comic book movies is you have to try to be as submersive and different as you can to stand out.
Don't market yourself as a comic book movie either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like those two films did because they succeeded.
We have two coming out next year where they're both rated R. So I think that's automatically
Actually, three. We got Kraven the Hunter.
Oh, I forget.
Which is also going to be rated R. There was a red band trailer for that.
Yeah.
And then we got Deadpool 3, which is coming out, which is going to be Marvel's first R-rated film. And then in the fall, we're getting Joker 2.
Actually, might be 4 because believe it or not, there's actually a Crow reboot releasing next year.
Yes,
so
that's
that
right.
Also could. I honestly, I think that movie might be rated R. I don't.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless they take the RoboCop route.
Yeah, looking at next year, there's actually 4 R-rated comic book movies releasing, which I think is a good thing, right? Because people want to see different things. People don't always want to see the safe PG-13 safe story. So I'm really curious to see next year how Deadpool 3 is received, what the marketing for that movie is like. I'm very curious about The Crow and the Joker sequel, because I think those movies have potential to be extremely dark. And as for the Crow reboot, I mean, that was already a very dark story. So I'm very curious about those movies, how they'll perform, what the reception will be, and what the marketing will be, if they'll be marketed as your typical comic book movie or not. I just think for right now, it's mediocre movie fatigue. But if these movies continue to play it safe, it's going to turn into comic book movie fatigue. So yeah, those are our thoughts on the topic. Do you believe in comic book movie fatigue? Do you have comic book movie fatigue? Do you just think there's been too many mediocre comic book movies releasing, or just mediocre movies in general? And that's why this whole discussion is being brought up again. Let us know what you think.
But yeah, thank you for listening to our podcast. Be sure to come back very soon. We have lots of reviews on our website that are interesting reads. Definitely check out our other episodes on the podcast. We will be back soon.
So thanks for watching.
Thank you.